Hello, 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 and good evening to everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the First Edition. This episode of the First Edition will be going over some oddities and curiosities, because some of the grotesque and grubby NPC goblins have decided to go up against and constantly harass our good friend, that umbrella guy. So, we have lots of things to go over, lots of fun to be had, and let's go ahead and get started, shall we? And we're back with the First Edition. I am your humble host, the Literature Devil, and tonight we'll be going over some really interesting things, and not just interesting, but actually pretty vile. I'm not sure if everyone knows, but that umbrella guy, usually goes over these crazies, these far left NPC crazies, who at first were the group called Anti-Comicsgate. But now they are probably more properly termed as Kick Vic, the Kick Vic movement anyway. And under either identity, that umbrella guy has been laying into them rather harshly, deservedly harshly, but rather savagely. He goes in and he takes down piece by piece all of their opinions, all of their beliefs, everything they push as a victory or as an advantage. That umbrella guy usually steps in and dismantles it wholeheartedly. And he drew lots of ire for that. And they've been harassing him. They've been trying to dox his family members. They've been trying to harass his wife, call his job. All the usual things you can expect from these quote-unquote heroes, right? These people who think they are on the right side, this right of righteousness, the side of righteousness and goodness and justice, like social justice. So, in response, I think one of the best things I could do, or one of the things that could really rub this fight back, this bite back in their face, is if I relentlessly shield that umbrella guy's very, very successful comic, The Case of the Littlest Umbrella. And the link to which is located in the description of this video. It's almost, the last time I checked, it was getting fairly close to over $100,000. I think it might be around 96K at the moment. But that's what I think should be done. Everyone should be pushing it. And if you already bought into this, awesome. But if you haven't or can't or already have bought into it, I think the best thing we can do to help fight back, to help support him, would be to support this comic. And not just because it's supportive, and not just because it'll help him, but because he deserves it. This is a very interesting premise. This comic is a all-family, all-ages Cthulhu mystery. A Cthulhu-esque mystery. And I'm very curious in how it goes, how it's going to develop. But the main thing is, his premise is that he just wanted to make something for his daughter, something that could be lucrative, and something that he can read with his daughter maybe many years into the future and say, this is something we made together. And that wasn't good enough. That from this, the NPC mad mob just swarmed all over this comic produced by that umbrella guy and his team, and they started throwing all kinds of accusations out there. They're saying that he is, as that umbrella guy would say, a P to the E to the D to the O, because he's making a comic where he and his daughter are working together. And this is only believable. This is only believable, only makes sense in the head of someone who's never had family or don't understand how families work, and probably don't understand how friends work either. There is no concept of love in the mind of an NPC goblin. And it even gets worse. It gets worse and worse as you look into this. But one of the things is why this stream was so prompted, and I usually don't talk about this quite so heavily, is because recently they were able to dox that umbrella guy. His name is out there, his job, his address, and he recently had his property vandalized. Although I'm not really sure if it was his property or not. From what I've heard, it was a mailbox from the house across the street, so it might not have been his mailbox. Although it could have been. I'm not really sure if I have that completely straight. But they've done that. And in particular, this is where it gets rather dark and gruesome. And one of the reasons why I decided to make the stream altogether is because a voice actor, I believe named Shannon McCormick, revealed to that umbrella guy, or at least announced publicly, long time ago, months and months ago, that they had his docs. His docs is private information. But we're saving it for later, for the right time, for a quote-unquote rainy day. Now, why this becomes so dark and so cruel is when you later find out that, according to that umbrella guy, they discovered that his wife had had a miscarriage before. They lost a baby before. And he often went on stream to say how much these little rats, these Renfamous, and these other NPC goblins were putting stress on her while she was pregnant. And they just kept doing it, and doing it, and doing it. They just kept trying to harass him, trying to ruin his life, trying to set his entire life on fire. Knowing full well that this is causing stress to an unborn innocent child. Now, now it gets even worse, and why it gets even worse is because of that phrase, I'm saving your docs so I can drop it on a rainy day. So that, basically, what this means is that they were waiting for the opportune moment for them to drop his private information. So when you put the dots together, when you connect everything together, the fact that they knew that his wife has had a miscarriage before, the fact that they knew that all of their activity was putting a heavy amount of stress on his wife and therefore the child. And then they knew that dropping his private docs would be incredibly stressful. What do you get from that? Now, what do you get from that? I'll give you a second to think about that. If you have all those together, all those facts together, side by side, what do you think they were trying to do? These good people, these high, upstanding, moral people, the people who stand up for minorities, who stand up for all the LGBT or whatever, all the lug butt community. These people who stand up for the weak, behind keyboards, obviously. They can't really do that. They can hardly stand up at all. But these people who like to think of themselves as these big-time heroes, who try to imagine themselves as these better people, the people who actually got up and did things, people who actually went out and did heroic deeds. What do you think they were trying to do? You put all these facts together. Now, something like this has been at least thought about in the Vic Mignogna case, because these are the same people. These are the same people who support the Kick Vic movement. These are the same people who were anti-Comicsgate and are probably still anti-Comicsgate. These are the same exact people. So, one thing they speculated was that they were trying to smear Vic Mignogna in front of the eyes of his fans. And with a person like Vic, his fans are everything. He really likes his fans. He feels a connection to his fans. The man is genuine when he talks and speaks and interacts with his fans. And for a man like Vic to lose that, to suddenly be cut off from all those things, and it was revealed, and this was revealed or speculated upon by Nick Rakita, that umbrella guy, and all those people who have been supporting Vic Mignogna, that if Vic Mignogna were to lose his fans and to lose all that respect and to be smeared in the eyes of the industry, there's a very good chance that a man at his age would commit suicide, would eat a bullet because he's lost all of it. So let me go over the facts again. The people who have been harassing that umbrella guy knew that their antics were putting a horrendous amount of stress on that umbrella guy's pregnant wife and the innocent unborn child. 2, they revealed to him a long time ago that they had his docs, but were waiting, specifically waiting for the right time to drop it. And 3, they knew, far before that that umbrella guy's wife has had a miscarriage before. So to me, I'm not sure about anyone out there, but to me, it seemed like they were trying to have a repeat, trying to put so much stress on his pregnant wife that his unborn child wouldn't survive, that she would again have a miscarriage. These upstanding, morally superior demons. These little people who think they can speak out and say they're moral when they do horrendous, villainous things. These are not actions of heroes. These are not actions of good people. These are actions of villains. What kind of hero puts stress on a pregnant woman, knowing full well that she might have a miscarriage again? What kind of good guys, what kind of heroes do that? And don't forget about good old Tim Doyle, this obese dwarf, teamed up with the corpulent cosplayer, the blue land whale. Tim Doyle is some sort of loser. He is an artist, I believe, and he always goes out and tries to sell things no one wants to buy because he created them. These people, these Tim Doyles and these Lauren Renfamous Coopers out there, they are poison. They are societal poison. And I don't say that because they tweet every once in a while about people, that they twist facts and logic to make themselves look good when anyone with a brain and anyone with eyes can see that they are lying. I'm saying that everywhere they go, they make things worse around them. They are poison. They are corruption. They are rotted. They are rotting plague. Everywhere they go gets worse. Everything they touch dies. That's it. That's everything they do. Everything they do is a failure. Everything they do is a failure. Mr. Tim Doyle, I believe, is one of the people who had to crowdfund random assortment of things. Just common things like sandwiches. Because his business is so horrible. His business is such in a decline that he can't really support himself. And no one wants to buy his stuff. No one wants to buy his trash. No one wants to pay for garbage. So he doesn't really sell anything. He owns a print shop. And he makes prints that no one wants to buy. So that's what the type of people we are talking about. Type of people we are dealing with. And one of the things I wanted to show you tonight was that interview that Renfamous had a long time ago with some other lefty YouTuber who wanted to talk with Renfamous, but didn't want to talk to Ethan Van Sciver, despite the fact that Ethan Van Sciver wanted to go on that little podcast, and the fact that they were talking about Ethan Van Sciver. The entire subject matter was about Ethan Van Sciver, but I guess they were too afraid that Ethan Van Sciver would steamroll over them. Of course, if Ethan Van Sciver would have steamrolled over them, then he would have broken whatever he used, because it's like trying to steamroll a mountain, this gelatinous, globby mountain with blue hair. Oh, and on that note, I suppose we know that it wasn't Renfamous herself who destroyed that umbrella guy's mailbox. He would have known, he would have felt her coming. He would have seen houses launched from the ground with every one of her footsteps miles away. So he would have had plenty of time to prep himself. So it is without any hint of doubt that Renfamous was not the person who actually attacked his mailbox. So it was probably someone else entirely. Coffis plays, how the hell does someone, Tim Doyle, go like this and not see how they're threatening someone else? Because they are smug, morally superior, and self-centered. These are not your regular, typical human beings. These are the things. These are maggots, fledgling dictators. These are Renfamous and Tim Doyle are maggots, the larval form of a dictator. Ever seen all the Hitlers and the Mussolinis and all the South American dictators? These are the larval form of those people. They are very self-centered. They are very they have that self-pity all the time, and they can't see past their own desires. They can't see past their own impulses. But one thing I wanted to show you, which is particularly interesting, I was going to save this for later, but I decided to bring it up now because I'm not so sure about Bleeding Fool anymore. Now, this may be a mistake. This may have been a maybe glitch in the system. Maybe something has gone wrong that's beyond their control. But if you look in the description right now, I had added a link to an article with the header of proof that Lauren Renfamous Cooper has the charisma of a skunk. Now, this links to a Bleeding Fool article that is about her meeting with that one lefty YouTuber. I forgot his name, but it was about that, and it was about Bleeding Fool calling her out on all her nonsense, and brings up the fact that they found Ethan Van Sciver's trove of juicy substances that he found about Lauren Renfamous Cooper. But if you look at that link now, at least when I looked at it a few minutes ago, the article no longer exists. It is a 404. And what's strange about that is that a few days ago, when I set up this podcast, or when I set up this episode, the article existed. Now it's gone. And I'm not really sure why. I'm not really sure what happened. So, was it a glitch? Possibly. It always usually tends to happen. But within a few days, not really sure why it just decided to glitch out. Or did Bleeding Fool just decide to delete it for whatever reason? And within the last few days, did Bleeding Fool just delete it? I'm not sure. I can't really tell for sure because it just happened. But I did manage to find the incriminating stuff. So here you go. Go ahead and transition. And there we go. If you look at that right there, I wasn't able to get a clearer copy, unfortunately. That's mainly because the article was deleted. I had to go with the remnants of the article and what was left over, and that's just what I could find. But good old lefty, far left, stand up for the little guy, Lauren Renfamous Cooper, has an interesting past. One of them being one of her statements of old being, "You hear that, America? If you dare take into consideration your religious beliefs when you vote for the gay community across the entire nation, is going to harass you into submitting to their demands. How long until they start burning churches? Anyone who participates into something like this deserves to be considered a second-class citizen." So, if you, according to Lauren Renfamous Cooper, if you bow down to anyone who is of the gay community, you are, or at least according to her, you should be considered a second-class citizen. I guess she doesn't really like those people. I guess she doesn't really like those people at all. And if you look over here, her second statement that she has, "Why the hell are you harassing Mormons in NYC for something that the citizens of California voted for? Typical bigoted liberal gays. I hope you get the fire hoses turned on you." Wow. Wow. What a hero. One of these good people wanting water hoses to be turned on homosexuals. Is that what a good person does? Lauren Renfamous Cooper switched stances, and I think it's because different people started to pay her, or something like that. But whether or not she was on the right, or whether or not she was on the left, she was always a bad person. She always took the side of the villain, the actions of the villain. That's what she's done, and she's continued to do so. These are not the actions of a hero. These are the actions of a villain, despite her being of different beliefs here. She seems to be more on the alt-right side here, doesn't she? So, one thing you can take away from this is that she's not a genuine person. She's not real. She's not honest. She is a Twitter account for hire. And always taking the side of the harasser. Always taking the side of the person going on the attack. It's not about hunting down people. It's about attacking them. And then at first it was Ethan Van Sciver, and then it was that Umbrella guy, and then it was Vic Mignogna, Nick Rekieta, back to that Umbrella guy. And she just can't stop. So I think someone said that she's getting paid for that, but I'm not really sure. I haven't seen any evidence on that myself. But I just wanted to show you this earlier than I wanted to, mainly because Bleeding Fool decided to blink that article out of existence. Or so it seems. Let's see here. Shockzilla 3000. Umbrella guy reminds me of a Christian in communist Romania in the 50s. He took a stand for what he believes in, and the government crushes his family in retaliation. That seems to be the usual reaction of the internet, at least in mainstream terms, because as that Umbrella guy has pointed out in his various streams and videos, that when these people attack him and harass him, when they dox his family, when they play these little games, when they smash his mailbox, when they call his job, when they try to put so much stress on his pregnant wife that she may knowingly lose the baby, when they do that intentionally, all these things, all these villainous acts, they are then supported by mainstream professionals. They are supported by Marvel. They are supported by Funimation. They are supported by professionals working in these industries. So it's not just a rabble of slime balls going around and harassing people and doxing people. It's a rabble of slime balls harassing and doxing people who are then supported by the mainstream of the industries for which they take part in. And I use the term take part in loosely, because we all know these are not customers. These are not people who spend money in these industries that the industry has decided with. These are people who are just there to complain and change things to suit their beliefs. But they'll never, ever buy. And if they do spend money, it'll just be for one thing to take a selfie with and then tossed away, never to be seen again. So Lauren Renfamous Cooper is a pretend bigot. She will be a bigot, she will be a harasser, she will be anything that will get her clout. Because why? Well, because she's a cosplayer, a very terrible cosplayer, just like Tim Doyle is a very terrible owner of a print shop. A very terrible artist. Because if she were good at cosplaying, she wouldn't need to do this. She wouldn't need to follow around men who have built up their platforms so that she could leech off of them like a bug. Like a slimy, vampiric insect. Because that's the only way she's able to get clout. She can't do it on her own. She has to go after people who have built up a platform. And that has happened consistently. She got famous. She started getting some clout when she's attacked diversity in comics. And then she got more clout by attacking Ethan Van Sciver. And she got more clout by attacking Vic Mignogna. And then more by attacking that Umbrella guy. None of which, not one iota, not 1 ounce of her clout, of her fame, came from her own doing. She did not build her own platform. Of course, she tried. She was a cosplayer, remember? She tried to build her own platform, but she's terrible at what she does. She can't succeed on her own. I believe she's being supported by daddy's money. She just can't succeed anywhere if it's on her own. She needs a life raft. And that Umbrella guy, Vic Mignogna, Ethan Van Sciver, and Diversity in Comics, they're her life rafts. Without them, she is nothing because she is worthless. No. Hold on. No, maybe not worthless. Because everywhere she goes is poison. Anything she touches turns to ashes. She'd be worthless if she didn't do anything, if she didn't take away any value, if she didn't add any value or take away any value. But she takes away value. She devalues things. If she stood next to a Ferrari, that Ferrari would be worth half its value after that. Because it had to undergo the stigma and the corruption and disgusting slime of her touch. So she is worth less than worthless. And same goes for all of these people in KickFic and Anti-Comicsgate, all these harassers, all these people who try to twist facts. And there was this one time, I remember they tried to twist things to such an extent that they looked at Mark Waid clearly interfering with a contract of Diversity in Comics and Antarctic Press, clearly intimidating the owners of Antarctic Press into breaking the contract, and said that's not tortious interference. And then they looked at that Umbrella guy who called the company one time to voice a complaint, and then later on, sometime down the line, that contract was severed, and they say no, that thing with Mark Waid, that was not tortious interference. What that Umbrella guy did, that was tortious interference. He called and voiced a complaint like any customer has the right to. And then, by some coincidence, they severed the contract. No, that's not just tortious interference. That's even more of an example of tortious interference, according to them. That's the kind of mental gymnastics that these people are capable of. And I mean, it was probably the only level of gymnastics these people are capable of, because they spend 24 hours a day on Twitter. Every few minutes. I mean, that Umbrella guy had calculated, he looked at some of these people, and I think it's like they average maybe a tweet every 3 minutes or so for days and days on end, thousands and thousands of tweets. Thousands of tweets. Because that's all they can do. Their fingers are probably the only parts of their body they can physically move anymore. They just sank into the chair and started to mold with it. And they're so angry and bitter about their own lives because it's mired in nothing but constant and absolute failure. They have to lash out against people who can succeed, people who know how to work hard, people who not only know how to work hard, but appreciate things like professionalism and good business, how to deliver and run a good business. Now, that Umbrella guy, he's a YouTuber. He's creating a comic, but he knows the value of professionalism, and that's all you need when you're a creator. Professionalism is everything. Treating your customers well is everything. Treating potential customers well is everything. Of course, you can lash out every once in a while, but when someone comes to you with complaints about your book or your work, you're not supposed to say, well, it wasn't written for you. You're not supposed to say, well, you're a Nazi for not liking my work. You're supposed to say something along the lines of, I'm sorry you didn't like it. Because these aren't personal attacks. Now, if you're a writer, it might feel like a personal attack, but they aren't. Unless they personally attack you also. But these aren't personal attacks. They just might not have liked it. They might have thought you did something wrong, something they didn't personally like. And that's not something to lash out about. I mean, not with malice. You might try to defend yourself. You might feel in the right to defend yourself, and that's perfectly fine. But what you shouldn't do, what's considered unprofessional, at least what I believe that Umbrella guy considers unprofessional, is when you call these people who complain, or the people who throw critiques your way, bigots and Nazis, and all matter of other slews of insults. That you're just not smart enough to understand the work, or you're not you're not morally justified enough to understand the work. You're not part of the minority community I was talking to. This book wasn't written for you. These aren't the things that should be done. That's not what professionals do. When you're a professional, you act like a professional. Not like a weirdo, not with like a strange, self-absorbed, self-centered child. That's what these professionals have degraded into. Their brains have degenerated because they've been eaten alive by these weird far leftist ideologies. Not even far leftist. It's just plain old social justice. It's these strange, inhuman mentalities that they have decided to absorb into themselves because they think it looks morally just. Zamboozle, they don't deserve any kind of dignity and respect that an actual human being capable of actual empathy and compassion inherently deserves. And that is absolutely correct. I remember recently, after this whole doxing of that Umbrella guy took place, Ethan Van Sciver came out and said that he has been kind, or as kind as possible, to these NPC types. And I said, they don't deserve kindness. These aren't people. These aren't opponents. These aren't just mere enemies. This isn't the Germans versus English in World War I, where they declared peace to celebrate Christmas. These aren't just a side defending one side defending one set of beliefs, and then another side defending their own set of beliefs, with mutual respect being a possible thing. These are vile villains. These are not people who uphold ideologies. These are people who use ideology as a shield. A blanket, a disguise, a curtain to hide their true corruption. Oh, they'll champion all the right things. They'll say all the right things as an excuse to do things like they did against Tug, against diversity in comics, against Ethan Van Sciver, and against Vic Mignogna. These are not people upholding any kind of righteous movement, any kind of morally upright endeavor. These are people who use morally upright endeavors for their own selfish, impetuous, self-centered ends. That's it. These are not people. These are not people who should be given any sort of deference. These are worms. Worms who don't care about anything but ruining people who don't agree with them. Ruining people who dare speak out against their horrible fledgling attempt at dictatorship. They want to take over everything because they are losers. Because they can't build their own stuff. And this is a pattern that we've seen. That everyone has noticed. There's a reason why they take over Tony Stark. There's a reason why they change Thor into a woman. There's a reason why they have they uglified She-Hulk. There's a reason why they had to take over Star Wars, why they have to take over the MCU, or they're taking over Marvel Comics and DC Comics, and they're trying to take over every other major franchise that has already established itself, and that's because they can't build it on their own, because they can't. They don't know how. Because it takes creativity. It takes thought. It takes independent thought. It takes removing yourself from your own impulses. Diving into the world of creativity. Building things on your own. And whenever they do, they fail. And even if they succeed, when they try to follow it up with a repeat work, they fail again. They will always eventually fail. Because they don't know how to succeed. Because if they did, they wouldn't be these people. They would be human beings instead of worms. I'm going to go ahead and jump off of this, and I'm going to show you exactly why so much animosity has been thrown Tug's way. Why him in particular? With all these people saying the same things as him, diving into the same subjects as that Umbrella guy, like Yellow Flash, although he has gotten some of this too, but there are so many people speaking out against the Kick Vic people and the anti-Comicsgate people. But that Umbrella guy has gotten so much more animosity in comparison. And he speculates it's because of his comic. Because all of this really started to pick up whenever he launched it. Let's take a look as to why. Maybe there's no validity to that. Maybe there is. So let's go. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. And we're going to go take a look at Tug's comic. Now, this is Tug's comic. A Lovecraftian, all-ages mystery. And it's very intriguing premise, and looks like it's done by very talented individuals. Which is why I backed it. And which is why I fully endorse people buying it. Now, of course, I don't know the skill level of the people involved. I mean, with all due respect, I don't know how they write and how they structure things. But the premise is interesting enough for me to go full throttle into backing this project. The premise and the reasons behind it, of course. It looks interesting to me. And apparently, it looks interesting enough to people that they have almost accumulated the backing of this comic to 6 figures. And that Umbrella guy has been great at pushing the PR of this. He is upholding his own beliefs. He's being very professional, giving out new perks, giving out new rewards, making sure people are getting their money's worth. He also keeps everyone up to date. He's always talking about the comic. More things come out all the time. More things just continuously start to come out. He's even thrown a fan art contest. And that'll be added to the end of the book now, because he seems to have, anyway, the same connection to his fans that Vic Mignogna does. He loves connecting with the people that follow him. You're not just a pocketbook to him. You are people. You are customers, valued fans. And he has done everything in his power to uphold his end of the bargain, and not only uphold his end of the bargain, but to respect the fact that you have invested in his project. And that's why, along with the premise, so many people have backed him. That's what I believe, because not only is it an interesting premise, not only is he very popular to listen to, I think his channel's now up to 40,000, but he's also very professional, and he won't just insult you, decide not to buy this comic. He won't call you a bigot or a Nazi. The only way he'd do that is if you attack him personally, if you dox him, if you try to attack his family and children. And he has a right to do that. He has a right to speak out about that. And he does, regularly. But again, these people have tried to put so much stress on his pregnant wife that she would lose a child. It's very fortunate that Umbrella guy has drawn the ire of losers and failures in this case, because they failed. His child was born with, as far as I can tell, no complications. Everything is fine. Congratulations to him. I'm very glad for it. And it's not really much a surprise that Kick Vic and Anti-Comicsgate, Tim Doyle, Lauren Renfamous Cooper, all those people, there's no surprise that they failed, because they fail at everything. They failed at life. They failed at things they set out to do, like cosplaying and owning a print shop. They failed at those things. And it's very fortunate for them that they have daddy's money and PayPal and GoFundMe's to support their dwindling lives. It's very fortunate for them. That's how they're able to uphold this lifestyle, because they are being supported by others, however stressful on the legs that might be. Let's see here. Creeper Weirdo, I don't get how you get from I don't agree with your politics to we need to make you fear for your life and ruin it. It's because this isn't really about politics. It's about ruining people who don't agree with you. It's about ruining people who don't share your views, your values. And I'm not even sure it's about that. It's about destroying people. That's all they care about. Picking targets and taking people down. That's it. That's all it is. Everything else seems to be an excuse, a cover, a disguise to disguise their maliciousness, their wickedness, their heartlessness and soullessness. These are vile, corrupt people. These are worthless worms. And the only way they can get any clout is by going after people like that umbrella guy, because they can't build it for themselves. They have nothing of value to offer the world. And that is why they have to stand on the corpses of others to build their platform. They will make their own platform out of the lives they intend to ruin. It's not about politics. It's not really about anything, actually, except for building their own platforms, building their own popularity, which they cannot do on their own because they have no charisma, they have no talents, and nothing of value to offer the world. So they must burn people's lives down and build a platform on their burnt up corpses. So these are the level of people we are talking about. Now, like I said, that Umbrella Guy's comic, The Case of the Littlest Umbrella, is successful, highly successful, especially for someone like Tug, who was not industry pro like Ethan Van Sciver was, and he doesn't really talk about comics that much anymore. He used to. He talked about Comicsgate and comics, but as he said, he was one of the faceless consumers. He was an average Joe. He's what he strives to represent. It's what he pushes himself as, the faceless consumer, the average man. And the average man stepped out and was able to make a comic worth nearly $100,000 because he upheld the belief of professionalism and created a work that people wanted to read, and a work that didn't preach at you, it didn't scold you for being who you are. It was a work that is just fun and filled with elements fit for all ages. And it was a work dedicated to his own family. A father and daughter bonding experiment. There's nothing malicious, nothing terrible, nothing dark about this at all, except maybe the story. Maybe the story is dark, but outside of that, the metagame. It's nothing like the comics that these Kickvick and anti-Comicsgate people want to produce. It's nothing like the comics they want to force upon the people. There are no ideologies, as far as I can tell, being pushed in here. It's, as far as that Umbrella Guy has said, it's just a fun comic. And fun is the enemy of these people. They can't afford for people to read comics and have fun. They can't afford for comics that don't give lectures or don't give a political ideology, a far leftist political ideology. They can't afford for comics to exist that just push the idea of having a good time. They can't afford that, because if those comics exist, those comics are allowed to succeed and flourish, then no one in the right mind would purchase their products. And it's true. And it's true, and I'm about to show this to you. Okay, I'm about to show this to you. exactly why, or at least a pretty good reason, why so many of these people are going after Tug, and especially after he launched this comic, and especially after we've seen its monumental success. I mean, I can only dream of reaching half of what he did. This is a monumental success. He did an absolute wonderful job. Great. He's great at PR. He's great at pushing it as a story for all ages. It's an excellent premise, excellent background into why this story was created in the first place. I'm going to show this to you because I'm not sure if everyone out there knows, but Lauren Renfamous Cooper, the blue-haired land whale, as she's also known, was attached to a comic anthology called Deadbeats, and it launched on Kickstarter instead of Indiegogo. So she tried her own hand at this crowdfunding comic thing. She, a nobody, although she has a face, not really one you probably want to look at, but it has a face nonetheless, she did the same thing as Tug. Of course, she had to pair with at least 45 other names from the comics industry, including Max Visaccio and Kwanzaa Osayefo. Now, Kwanzaa Osayefo managed to have some moderate success. No, actually, that's not moderate. Not moderate. He did very well in his first book, Black. I'm not really sure. I think it was 6 figures, maybe close to 6 figures, maybe. If not 6 figures, then close to it. He did very well on his own. Max Visaccio is a well-known person from the industry who was nominated for an award, didn't win, which is, of course, he didn't win. I mean, not even these crazy far leftists can hand a reward to the work Max Visaccio has produced. That would be insane. Not even they can be that dishonest. But Max Visaccio, Kwanzaa Osayefo, and at least 45 other creators. And I say at least because if you go to the Deadbeats Kickstarter main page, they list 45 people and then they say the term "and more," insinuating that there's even more people that didn't have really enough room to list. So I would like to remind you that that Umbrella guy, his comic, and along with his team, they're about to push 6 figures, about 100,000. So let's take a look at how Deadbeats did. This is Deadbeats. This is the title that Lauren Renfamous Cooper was attached to. Now it is an anthology, which basically means that a bunch of authors got together to create their own story each, and then they're going to put all those stories together in one big book. And that's what their backers are supposed to get. One big book. Creeper weirdo, stop. They're already dead. No. I'm not going to stop. I'm never ever going to stop. These people don't deserve to have any sort of mercy. Not after what they've done. And of all the things, I mean, doxing Tug was one thing. That was bad form. That was very bad form, very dishonest. But honestly, what really gets to me, why I have so much passion and so much vitriol concerning this that Umbrella Guy situation, is because of the first thing I pointed out. They had his docs. They had full knowledge of his wife having had a miscarriage before, and they waited to drop his docs until about maybe a week before the baby was born, full knowing how much stress their constant harassment placed on his wife. No. No. No deference, no mercy. Okay, there's no way I'm ever going to let that go. They tried to force his wife to have a second miscarriage. They put all the facts together. That's what it seems like. That's what it seems like they were trying to do. So they might already be defeated. They might already have been stomped into the ground, but I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to hold back because of that. They don't deserve it. Rosemary Moore was bad for doing it so close to the due date. Exactly. And that fact right there is why I'm not going to let this slip. That's why I made it this stream. Just to vent against these worms, these worthless, scummy worms. Creeper weirdo, yes. Let the hate flow through you. Then come out as snark. I will do my best. Flying turret 208, the cannon. Deadbeats beats dead horse. Yeah, I'm about to go into deadbeats, actually. It's, even without all of this controversy, it was a horrible, horrible idea. Let's see here. Let's see. Botan, I think they know they're wrong, and I think they know they're in the wrong, but they don't care because they hate Tug so much. Yeah. And they hate him. I'm not even sure if it's hate. I think it's more selfish than that. These people, that's too external, I think. It might be more on long lines of they're so selfish, so self-centered, that they want to build their own platform that they are unable to make on their own with his ruined life. They want to build their own platforms on the ashes of good people. Let's see here. Let's see. Flying turret 208, the cannon. It's called me versus you thinking. If you're not for me, you're against me. And if you're against me, your success will be my death. That's exactly what the mentality, I think, that that Ethan and Skyver has pointed out, that there's not enough room for success for everyone. You can't have people who don't agree with pushing politics and everything to be out there, because if they did, if this was allowed to remain out there, then no one would buy things that they produced. Let's see. I'm going to go over a few of these before I bite into deadbeats. A flying turret 208, the cannon. They should be able to afford it with how much the left sinks in them. Autocorrect. Let's see here. Flying turret 208, the cannon. When I want politics, I want another human being listening, not a one-sided story I sit there screaming at. That's how I am. The thing, they always say that comics has always been political, but that's not true at all. There's a big difference between being inspired by politics and then just shoving politics into everyone's face. It's a difference between something like Alan Moore's Watchmen, which was heavily inspired by the politics of, I believe, the 1970s, but mainly the Cold War style tensions. So you have things like Watchmen, and then you have those pamphlets that are just made to push some sort of ideological agenda. Not just the far left ideology. I mean, this is common throughout many organizations, from religious to political, to just special interest groups. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to find a comic that just pushes the fact that we need to legalize marijuana or something. So, but there's a huge difference between a comic book that pushes the legalization of marijuana and a comic book inspired by the idea that marijuana should be legal. I mean, if you've seen the movie Shoot 'Em Up, it's pretty blatant. There's a pretty blatant anti-gun policy in there, pretty blatant anti-gun stance, because the bad guys are trying to push out more guns, and they just want people to have the right side, the good side that's being pushed, is the side that wants fewer guns and is anti-Second Amendment. But it's still an interesting, fun movie because it fits in the context of the story. Now, of course, I don't agree with that. I believe in freedom. And people, crazies waving around guns and shooting people, does not mean that the rest of us should pay for their mistakes and their wickedness with our freedoms. Let's see here. Creeper weirdo. I get this reaction to someone like an ER or Medicare. They keep poking you. Tug just made a comic for his kid. WTF, dude. Exactly. When you have someone like ER and I have the same sort of ideology, I guess, in terms of the fact that we like to put in things that trigger people, and I've seen the fact that in comments made towards me that it's worked. I put in things like Ivanka Trump when I said something along the lines of, looking good or something, and I put in things like American Psycho, Patrick Bateman, who's a serial killer and like to kill people he doesn't like. So I put him in when I said, we all want to look better. Basically, I did that to trigger people, trigger these far left weirdos, and the fact that that's an actual line from the movie. We all want to look better, be better, and prove ourselves. That's what he says. I mean, it's mainly because he's self-centered and a narcissist, but it's something that pertained to the element of the video. But I always put in these little Easter eggs in there so that the very sensitive and crybaby far left will point at it and say, look, I'm triggered by this. And ER does the same thing. He loves to put in these little things that will trigger the right people, that will trigger somebody. I'm pretty sure ER would love to trigger anyone. That's what he does. He just likes to put in little jokes, little references to just upset people because it's funny. And he does a really good job because it's really funny. Medicare, I mean, anyone who has ever listened to Medicare, that's his whole thing. The ER puts these jokes in while he's critiquing some sort of movie or television series. But Medicare doesn't really review those things. He doesn't go over a story or anything like that. He's just about making fun of silliness on the internet. And he's really good at it. But that's a good point, that these people, ER and the Medicars, they like to troll people. And they poke people, they poke the bear, and it'd be more reasonable to see why people would go after them. But that Umbrella guy, yeah, he mocked these people, deservedly so, because these people deserve relentless mocking. But mainly, his videos were about going over their arguments, going over their assertions, and then putting forth evidence that just tears it apart. But that's why they can't have him out there speaking, because he's tearing apart their arguments and assertions with facts. I mean, they could say that comics are succeeding, and then that Umbrella guy pulls up all of this information and statistical data that destroys that assertion. Mark Waid says he's going to win because he didn't intimidate the Duns. That Umbrella guy puts out information that disproves that wholeheartedly. Everything they put out, everything they want to push, every lie, that Umbrella guy is there, ready to smash that assertion with a hammer. He's not going after anyone. He's not taking a video of someone and destroying it or tearing it apart. He's going after their arguments, and he's tearing apart their arguments with his own evidence. His own data-based evidence. It's not just conjecture. It's not just a line of, well, this is my experience, this is what I think it's going to do. But this is what I think is how it's going to go. It's like well, if you see diversity in comics, or what's his, your boy Zach, Comics Matter, I think he goes by now. You watch him, he has very entertaining videos, but usually when he does his critiques, it's more along the lines of this is how he feels at the moment. And that's why he's so interesting to listen to. It's because it's like you're just listening to a guy in your living room. It's like you're just listening to a friend and he's just talking about comics with you. That Umbrella guy brings in actual hard data that he has found, scrounged up, and has ready and prepackaged for you to see. And that's why he's become far more dangerous, at least judging by their reactions. That's why they view that Umbrella guy as so dangerous, as to not allow him to continue speaking. There's one thing having someone out there espousing his views and opinions. It's another thing to have someone out there going against him, shattering the arguments, and then presenting hard data to back up his claims. They just can't have that, because they could say, oh, he's just a bigot if it's just opinion, but they can't attach bigotry and Nazism and opinions to hard data. It's just not there. They can't do it. They can't spin that. They've tried. It doesn't really work. Flying Turret 208, the canon, by chance a parody of Angel Beats? No. If they did that, it would probably make a little bit more sense. Coincidentally enough, I just watched Angel Beats. I saw it on Netflix, and I've heard a lot about it. I heard it was very brutal, emotion-wise. It was all right. It's okay. It could have. I mean, the ending. It should have been, she disappears at the end, and then that's it. Then they had the very last scene where they found each other in the alternate life. Oh, come on. Who decided to do that? You just destroyed the entire tragedy. What a beautiful thing you had, and then you just ruined it by giving it a happy ending. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but no, unfortunately, Deadbeats is not a parody of Angel Beats. It's actually far more idiotic than that. I mean, if they had done a parody of Angel Beats, it would have been terrible, but it would have made more sense. Here, it makes zero sense, and I'll explain that in a moment. I'll go over a few more of these, see if anyone else, see a few more comments in the chat. Let's see. Political theme versus bear propaganda. That's essentially what it is. I don't really... Sorry, but I don't want to go through your name. Too many numbers and letters. I'll say 0x9. Political theme versus bear propaganda. That is exactly what they don't want to have. They are not fine with political theme. They just want bear propaganda. They want to force you to read it. They want to destroy everything else so that you're forced to read their garbage. It's that mentality it's that therapy mentality, the therapy culture that we have now. It's not you that needs to prove itself. You are good just the way you are. You are a special little snowflake. You're beautiful just the way you are. But why am I not succeeding? Why am I not getting all the praise and admonition I'm supposed to be getting? Admiration I'm supposed to be getting? Why is that? Oh, it must be the world that's wrong. It must be the world that needs to change. The world is bigoted. The world is full of evil people. It's corrupt. That is why I'm not getting my well-deserved admiration. And people like Tug and Diversity in Comics and Ethan Van Sciver, these are all people who know the value of hard work. They know that success isn't just handed to you. They know that success only comes if you're willing to work for it. And not just work for it, but improve yourself. Read, learn, practice, make mistakes. Just constantly improve yourself so that you can do a better job. If it fails the first time, you improve yourself, you learn something new, you try something different so that maybe it doesn't fail quite so badly the second time. Then you do it over and over, constantly changing, constantly improving until you are on the stage and you have created a comic that's about to break $100,000. You create a comic that almost broke 1 million with Cyberfrog. You create a comic that launched an entire movement and broke records of crowd-funded comics when you released Jawbreaker's Lost Souls. It takes hard work. It takes knowing how to characterize. It takes knowing how to plot your story. It takes knowing your audience. It takes so much stuff. It takes so many things that you have to learn, have to go through, that they know, these people know, that success doesn't just drop into your lap. You are not a special little snowflake. You are not special. They know that you are not special until you are. Until you become special. And that's what these people don't understand, because they have been so saturated with constant therapy culture. This safe space culture. It tells you that you are special just the way you are, that you are a perfect human being, and that you are entitled to admiration. And then when you are not handed that admiration, you become this sad and bitter. I mean, as a cosplayer, it takes more work than just sitting around tweeting all day and then every once in a while dressing up to go to work. And blue wigs or whatever. It takes dedication. It takes working out. It takes exercise. It takes eating right. It's pretty much the same routine as a bodybuilder. You have to look the part. You can't just put on a costume that looks like a character and expect to be the top cosplayer. It takes work. You can't expect to be a writer without having to make a few mistakes, without experimenting with writing styles and seeing how different writers from the past did things, seeing why things work, seeing why things are done the way they are. It takes work to get there. And I think I used that exact phrase in my Mary Sue video. These people make Mary Sues because they think that their characters and people like them should just be handed things, that people should just kowtow to them just for their mere existence. And you see this even in Marvel professionally produced comics. Diversity in comics, your boy Zach, he points this out all the time, that these SJW NPC characters are constantly getting emotionally validated. And if they have no one around to emotionally validate them, they emotionally validate themselves. That's all it is, emotional validation, constant reminder that they are perfect little human beings without having to do the work. They're just granted powers. It's like Kamala Khan, walking around and just being tossed powers. The world bows to you. That's their mentality. They have no concept of sacrifice, no concept of putting something else before your own impulsive desires. It's just immediate gratification. And why am I not getting immediate gratification? Flying Turret 208, The Canon. Wait. Angel Beats is back on Netflix. It's been like 3 years since I've seen it. As far as I've seen, I think I watched it recently, maybe the last 4 days. So as far as I know, Angel Beats is on Netflix. And it was alright. It's pretty good. It did hit pretty good on its tragic element. I think I might even put it in my Western versus Eastern storytelling video. And I'm thinking I'll call it Western versus Eastern, but I'm not really trying to pit them against each other and saying which one is better. They're both good. Okay? They're both good, so just keep that in mind. I'm not saying one is better than the other when I say Western versus Eastern. I'm just comparing the two. But yeah, you'll see Angel Beats is a very good example. But anyway, Dead Beats is... Let me see if the description up here. Here it is. The description right here. And hopefully you can read it. Here we go. Okay, so Dead Beats, according to their own description, okay, this is according to their description, I'm not trying to take them out of context. Dead Beats is a 160-page full-color anthology of music-themed horror comics centered around the curiosities for sale at one peculiar record store by its enigmatic shopkeeper. Okay? Music-themed horror comics. Music-themed comic. And there's two things that I've seen fledgling writers do. Mainly writers who are just diving into fan fiction, trying to try out a few things, just getting their craft down. First is a Mary Sue. They usually create Mary Sues like they're going out of style. Second thing is, there are more artistic types, the ones who write, but they're really more of like painters or drawers or things like that. They are musicians. They tend to put in music in their writing. Now, it works full and well for them because they know what the music sounds like and they can picture it perfectly in their minds. But even with even with famous tracks, it doesn't really work out, because this may come as a surprise to the people who created this comic. You can't actually hear comics. Comics aren't actually an auditory medium. And you might say that, you might put lyrics in there. You might give some indication of what song is playing, but you can't hear it. This is fine to do. It's not a good thing to do. It's not going to have the effect. It's never going to have the effect you want it to have. Because what it sounds like you're in your mind is not what your reader is going to hear. You can't hear comics. Okay? You just can't. It's unless you're viewing this comic on some other device that adds audio. Now, music-themed horror could work in a television show or a movie. I mean, you could have a Rocky Horror Picture Show, if you find that scary or not. You could do that because audio is an option there. Not so much in a comic. So all you get is the knowledge that it is music themed, but you don't really get that anywhere else. It's basically in the metagame. It's just music themed. That's all you know, and maybe there's some instruments. Maybe this involves a band somewhere. That's all you get. That's why this is such a terrible idea. It would be one thing if they had 45 plus creators and professionals work on one solitary comic. But it's another thing to have 45 plus professionals work on a comic with such a horrible premise. They could have at least just made it horror. It's the horror-themed comic. But no, they decided to make a musical-themed horror comic. Which is the worst thing they could have done. And it might be, and that's probably why it didn't succeed all that much. Oh, it hit its goal. There's no getting around that. It hit its goal. But if you can see right there in the picture, and the title of Deadbeats, you'll notice that it raised $33,877. So it hit its goal. But if you look in comparison of Deadbeats to the case of the Littlest Umbrella, you notice a significant difference. Okay? So 45, let's put this into context real quick. 45 plus people, including Lauren Renfamous Cooper, Kwanzaa Osayefo, who has quite a few connections with the media, Max Bisaccio, who was up for an award, again didn't win, because not even those people are that dishonest as to reward nonsense. And then at least, not maximum, but at least 42 other people worked on this comic. And they managed to raise about $34,000. Well, that Umbrella guy, under his own description, a faceless consumer, okay? The faceless consumer of the average Joe, okay? The faceless nobody that represents the mass amount of consumers out there. The average Joe. He steps out, makes a comic with a small team. I believe he maybe have one or two other people on there, the artist and the storyboard person. He steps out, and he makes a comic worth, right now I believe is $96,000. About 3 times as much as all of these professionals combined. And this is why, this is the belief that Umbrella guy and I share in, why they hate him most of all. Because he stepped out and dominated all of these people. Complete and utter domination. Not only is he destroying all of their arguments with hard factual data, like Ip Man facing off 10 black belts. Not only is he obliterating all of their assertions, all of their false assumptions, and all of their teensy-weensy, fragile, flaccid little lies with hard, incorruptible data. But he's also going out there and beating them at their own game. And not just beating them, not just beating them by a few thousand. He's beating them by multiple levels. 3 times. He's made 3 times as much. And if you think about the success of Deadbeat, so they'll say they succeeded all day long. They'll say that they reached their goal and that the Deadbeats project was a resounding success, because that's what they do. They turn every failure and spin it as a success. Katsura Animations, thank you for subscribing. Welcome aboard. How these people they take, every time they fail, they spin it into a success. And they'll say Deadbeats succeeded. They'll always say that. And they say they'll have probably no animosity toward that umbrella guy dominating them, just curb stomping them into the ground. Curb stomping 45 popular artists and professionals from the industry. Curb stomping 45 of these people into the dust, including the failure Lauren Renfamous Cooper. The absolute failure, valueless and worthless. It reminded me because, I mean, she was attached to this project. I mean, that was a big factor right there. Just corrupted, just crumbled in the dust like the bad guy from the Dark Crystal. Curled up and withered away like the feet from the Wicked Witch of the East in Wizard of Oz. Just weathered away. So they'll say it succeeded. They'll say that it succeeded all day long, and that their only animosity towards that umbrella guy is because he's a bigot, or he's a Nazi, he's some sort of Isterphobe. But let's go ahead and let's just assume that these 45 people do what they do the only thing they can do good in their entire lives, do the only talent that they have, and convince people to do work for them for free. Convince people to float their costs and pay for their overhead. Let's assume that the entirety of this $33,877 went to profits, and they will divide these up evenly. They would divide these profits evenly up between everyone. Each person would walk away assuming that this was all tax-free, assuming they didn't have to pay any artists or pay anything to anyone. That this was all 100% pure profit. And there was an even split. And there was only 45 instead of 45 and then more. Okay? Everyone would walk away with $752.82. That is their resounding success. Assuming tax-free, assuming no overhead, assuming this was all 100% pure profit, each person would be able to pocket and walk away with $752. It's probably more than they make on their silly cosplay and printing ventures, but it's not really all that much for all this effort, is it? $750. They might as well have just worked a job for 2 weeks. I mean, any job. They could go through all this trouble of making a comic, or they could just work at 7-Eleven for about 2 weeks. Maybe a month. They'd probably make more after a month. That's the resounding success that they will call about. That they will tell you that they topped the list. They met their goals. And all these assumptions, given them all these assumptions, they would have walked away with a maximum of $752 for all this effort. That's the resounding success. Which is probably a success to them. I mean, because these people, again, are constant failures and valueless losers. So $700 from this monumental effort would probably be a good payout for them, because they actually succeeded at something. It took 45 of them working in unison but they actually succeeded at something for once. So this is probably, we can probably give them a little leeway, considering this is probably a first for them. They succeeded at something they didn't have to bury someone for. Flying Turret 208, the canon, a music-themed horror story, plays Brown Note. If only. And someone should play the Brown Note in this book. That to be like the one funny thing, because I'm pretty sure. Actually, let me show you a little picture they have here. It's just the usual happy, friendly, bright-looking coloring art. And you can just tell. There's no dialogue here, but you could probably just tell they're going to have all these jokes. Right? These little quirky jokes that no one laughs at except for their friends. It's probably going to be filled with that. It's probably going to only have that. So having the Brown Note in there, probably the one genuinely funny thing they'll have in there. Let's see here. Zamboozle reminds me of how indie team Cherry blew every AAA video game producer out of the water in 2016. Yeah, that's the trend right now. Indie creators. I mean, you can go from video games to comics to novels, even to beer, craft beer. The indie market is dominating the mainstream because the mainstream has bent the knee to these NPC weirdos. And even if they don't bend the knee, they're pumping out pure garbage. They're pumping out things that people don't want to see. And then they call you bigoted or something when you don't want to see it. Let's see. Flying Turret 208. Success isn't defined by equal to your goal. Success is defined by a surprising exception. That's why narcissists can't succeed. They believe they can do it all. It's exactly true. They probably thought that, this was going to be something that would blow Comicsgate out of the water. They thought they would get together 45 quote-unquote righteous, morally upright human beings. The anti-Comicsgate crowd, the Kick Vic crowd. They probably thought that they could put all these people together and say, hey, we're standing up for the little guy. And that all the people who they thought were following them, all the hordes and crowds of people they thought were following them and listening to them and liking their tweets and retweeting their tweets and saying, hey, we'll totally back you up. They thought they had hordes behind them. They thought they had armies behind them. And they thought that putting together 45 of these people would combine 45 armies. Only to learn that these 45 people only have the same couple of thousand weirdos backing them every step of the way. I think they had 1,090 backers, which is good. And they'll spin this into a success. But what it looks like to me, getting 45 plus people, all these anti-Comicsgate people, getting them together on one anthology, it seems to me that they were actually expecting huge Ethan Van Sciver-esque levels. They're probably hoping for $800,000, $900,000, $1 million. They probably wanted to create this comic and then blow it up, have it blow all of Comicsgate out of the water. I mean, artificially speaking, of course, because they had 45 people, 45 well-known professionals get on this comic, and they would probably have spun it as, hey, look, people don't really like Comicsgate, they like us. We're the ones saving comics, not you guys. But they didn't. It didn't happen because people don't want this. They found that out the hard way, and their narcissism is probably because it probably led them to believe that they would be the deadbeats would be this dominating factor and this huge mover and shaker in the game. They probably wanted to have a modest goal, then meet it, and then say, "Oh, look, we only had to do a modest goal of $10,000 or $1,000 or whatever they had." and then actually expect to be getting $800,000, $900,000. These Ethan Van Sciver levels of success. This way they can go, they can laugh at these people. They can laugh at Comicsgate and say, we do the same thing. We set out to do the same thing, and we blew you all out of the water. They wanted to say that. I can just taste it. There's no evidence, of course, because, and it's like everything else, they failed. They failed to do that. This comic has 45 creators on it. 45 people who came to the table bringing their clout and all the popularity they've gained. They should have done far better than 33,000. And that's why I think they were also wanting to do. That's why I think they expected was going to happen. That they were going to get hundreds of thousands of dollars from this. So that not only could they get paid on it, but then they could rub it in Comicsgate's face. But notice how they don't really push it anymore. I mean, I think Renfamous still has it as their banner, but no one talks about this comic anymore. It used to be such a big thing. It used to be such a big topic. Oh, this is going to be the comic that counters Comicsgate. That's going to prove the Comicsgate thesis wrong. But it didn't. It didn't happen. And now it's just fallen off the edge of the world. I even forgot about this comic. I forgot all about this. I wouldn't blame anyone out there for forgetting also, because this was so unimportant, such garbage. There's a garbage premise. And when they stopped talking about it, people forgot. All these names, you would have thought that 45 industry professionals would have kept this alive, kept this fresh in the minds of the people, but they didn't. They failed. That was it. They topped out at 33,000, and the show was over. There was no monumental success. There was only spin. Everyone was laughing at them. Comicsgate was laughing at them because Comicsgate knew. Okay, everyone who was even in Comicsgate adjacent knew that these people were wanting to start off with a moderate goal, so they could say they like to look moderate, they like to look humble, but they were actually expecting monumental, epic, glass-shattering success, which never ever came because they are losers and failures. But let's take a look at the case of Littlest Umbrella. That Umbrella guy and his team has so far, as of right now, right this minute, generated 1,940 backers. And having by the time his original campaign ended, he had accumulated 1,547 backers. So the brunt of those backers, the brunt of his funds was generated before the case of Littlest Umbrella came to an end. So it's not just the in-demand money he's made. Most of it came from when it was still open, when the campaign was still open. Same rules. He followed the same rules. He was playing by the same rules as Deadbeats. And he destroyed them. He dominated them. 45 people, including industry professionals, people who have had comics, Marvel comics, published under their names. They were curb stomped by that Umbrella guy. And when you take this into consideration, okay, when you think about all these things, when you put all the facts together, the fact that that Umbrella guy just easily counters all of their weak sauce arguments with hard data, will not stop, continues to break down everything their puny, flaccid little minds come up with, every spin, countering every spin they try to toss out at you, try to vomit at you. Not only is he destroying them, countering their arguments at every turn, making them laughing stocks, exposing them for the worthless worms that they are, at every turn, but he stepped out and challenged them at their own game, creating comics. And until then, these same people were hollering as how great their works are, how beloved their works are. So when that Umbrella guy came out and made his own comic and dominated them, it was a humiliating defeat. Because all these people, this was the Deadbeats project was the time they were supposed to show Comicsgate that everything they believed was wrong. That the comics industry was not dying, that all of these people had so much following, so much support, that they were superstars. And that when 45 of them came together, these superstars would generate a huge fortune. They would blow everything out of the water. They would, if you were to combine Comicsgate, all of the funds Comicsgate created, they were expecting to destroy all of that. But they didn't. People were laughing at them. They became laughingstocks again. That umbrella guy made them into laughingstocks again. Again. At every turn, every time they tried to spout some nonsense, that umbrella guy was there to put them back in their place. A firm backhand to everything they came out with. So basically, he was destroying every foundation they tried to create. Comics were succeeding. That umbrella guy would come in and say, no, they weren't. Here's the data. They're failing. Here's the data. You're wrong. Here's the data. Mark Waid is in big trouble. Here's the data. Every time, every argument they had, that umbrella guy came in and said, here's the data. Here's the data. Here's the data. Proving you dead wrong. And so they tried to fight back by launching Deadbeats. And it was a humiliating defeat. That umbrella guy had beaten them, not just beaten them, but dominated them yet again. 45 people, a small militia of creators, banded together, like some sort of weird Legion of Doom, except not nearly as competent. Legion of annoyance, legion of irritation, legion of mild irritation. 45 people came together to prove Comicsgate was nothing and failed. Not only did they failed to that umbrella guy. I believe that this comic came out around the same time as his. And playing by the same rules, playing by the exact same rules, that umbrella guy dominated Deadbeats. Complete and utter destruction. Every time they stepped up to that umbrella guy, they lost. And not just lost, but again, they suffered humiliating defeats every single time because they don't know how to win. They've been losers and valueless leeches all their lives. They're only able to succeed when they push an ideology, when they force you to give them success. They can't generate success. They have to intimidate you or guilt you into giving it to them. Let's see. Zamboozle 750 sounds like it might get me a Photoshop subscription for a few months. That's exactly right. I mean, 750 is fine. I mean, it's a fairly nice chunk of change. I wouldn't mind having $750, extra dollars. But it's not something substantial. It's not the victory they were hoping for. It's not the cash flow that they were hoping to wave in Comicsgate's face and say, you were wrong. We beat you. Because in reality, they beat no one. Oh, sure, they might have beaten some smaller Comicsgate's campaigns. The people who are basically on their own, have smaller channels, have smaller clout. But those smaller teams on Comicsgate, they're either solo jobs, or there may be 1 to 2-member teams. And they're going home with way more than $750. Deadbeats required 45 plus people. 45 plus people. And remember, this $750 that I'll calculate it. This is assuming there's no overhead. This is assuming they don't have to pay any of the artists. This is assuming they don't have to pay for printing. This is assuming they don't have to pay for shipping. This is assuming people are just going to hand them everything. Which they're probably one thing they're good at, like I said. If assuming they are being handed everything. And there's an even split. Everyone will walk away with just about $750 for the entire endeavor. That umbrella guy will walk away with a lot more than that. I'm not really sure how much he's putting into all of this, all these perks, and the artist and the storyboard person. I'm not really sure how much he's spending on that. But let's just say, after everything's said and done, he's going to get about maybe half of that $100,000. He'd still be walking away with $50,000. He would still be walking away a winner. He would have still dominated Deadbeats. The $750 is quite a bit less than $50,000. A flying turret to rate the cannon, assuming they don't have the brown note because they're asses. I'm going to kill a fool for skipping the easiest quality related joke. We'll blow Comicsgate out of the water. The Mueller report proves collusion with Trump. It took me a minute to remember it was the Mueller report, about as forgetful as the comic is. Now, every time they push something, it's always a colossal failure. Not just a failure, because it's one thing to have a failure. There's, oh, I failed at something. But these failures are so monumental. They blow up in their face. It just blows up in their face because they're so arrogant, so full of themselves. They're not counting on just mere success. They're counting on their success being so grand, so epic, that it just obliterates the other side. They're not hoping for $10,000. They're hoping for $100,000. That they could just rub it in the face of Comicsgate, but it didn't happen. They're walking away losers. Because no one remembers this comic. People still talk about the case of the Littlest Umbrella. It was interesting enough that I never forgot about it. But Deadbeats, it's really forgettable. There's nothing interesting about it. I mean, there's nothing that lets it stand out other than it's being created by 45 people. And there's virtually no profit. In fact, they probably might come through the other side losing money. So, that means it's not really the success they were hoping for. Not by a long shot. Let's see here. And not nearly as competent. That's an overstatement of the intelligence of 45 people who failed to make even $50K off a single project. Assuming the project took a week, took longer certainly, as livable. I'm not even sure. I haven't even heard anything from this comic. I'm not even sure if it's been delivered yet. I'm not even sure if it will be delivered. Remember, some of these people who hate Comicsgate, like Richard Pace, they put out their own Kickstarter comic, and then they never, ever delivered. At least Kwanzaa Yosef, despite what you might think about him, he delivered his comics. His works are out there. I can't say the same for everyone else out there. Everyone else attached to this project. So I'm not really sure if the people who back this thing will ever get it. The canon wage will require about $1K a week. Yeah, so I mean, if you $750, you can either go to this, because believe me, it's a lot of work, lots of coordination, a lot of work putting together a comic. It's something that you really have to want to do. You have to make sure everything's good. Make sure it's finalized. Make sure everything works. Make sure you have a reliable printer, a good artist. Make sure that everything is set up. Think of perks. Think of all these. There's a lot. It's a huge endeavor. Put out a comic, and assuming, no, we know it's not the case, but assuming that all of this is pure profit, doing all of this for $750 doesn't seem like it's worth it. I mean, 45 people, 45 plus people. 45 plus people who are known names in the industry. Having 45 plus people who are known names in the industry and just getting this little when so many people who have never created a comic before has topped this many times over. This was not a success at all. This was a monumental failure. So, I mean, these people are going after Tug, and he has asserted this, that this is why, that when he came out with his comic and then had so much success with it, that's when they started really going after him. That's when he became enemy number one. Even more than Nick Requiem. I mean, they hate him, but you don't see about as much. I mean, he gets a lot, but they're really trying to lay into Tug, and it's probably because he's succeeding. Nick Requiem is the face of the I Stand With Vic movement. He's the one really giving it to the Kick Vic people. He's the one who is dominating everything Kick Vic is pushing our way. But that Umbrella guy, he is the one pushing the fact. He is the showcase. Ironically, he is the face, proving that comics is in such a state right now that the average person can dominate the people whose entire job is to create these comics. The faceless average consumer. The faceless consumer. The person who just buys comics when they get out of work. The person who goes to Walmart and picks up a small anthology. That person, that Umbrella Guy's success proves that that person can step out into the professional comics industry and dominate professionals. And that is why he's so dangerous to these people. That is why they can't have him doing what he does. Because his success is their destruction. That Umbrella Guy's proven success proves that the average consumer knows more about building quality comics, about building quality characterization and story, and more about pushing what people want to read, more than the professionals whose entire job that is. The average consumer is more of a professional than the comics professionals can ever be, and that is why that Umbrella Guy is so dangerous to them. Let's see here. Give or take a few weeks about that 1K a week wage. Yeah, I mean, they might as well just work at Taco Bell or something. It's a lot of effort you put. Of course, Lauren Renfamous Cooper. I mean, she's probably just scribbling on some paper and then turning it in as a script. Someone else is probably doing all the work. That's like usual. Someone else always does all the work. All she does is tweet. All she does is tweet. That's all she can really do is tweet and spin things and pretend to be a good person. And not very well. Flying turret 208. The cannon has quality retort that doesn't kick me. Proceeds to forget it. Oh, come on. And that's what... This is why these people are so dangerous. This is why I wanted to make a stream dedicated to these people, because after everything they've done, it just seems right and deserving that they have a huge backlash against them. They have this huge backlash of people commentating on them and critiquing them because they have no set of morals. They have hollowed morals. Pretend morals. They have things that look like morals, things that sound like morals, but they aren't real. They're a hollowed shell. It's an illusion of morals. They don't, and because in the end, they don't really stand for anything. Nothing at all. Nothing except their own clout and building their own platform on the ashes of people they destroyed because they can't build their own. Not on their own. They have no talents. They refuse to put in the hard work. They refuse to make themselves valuable people. See, Old Man Programmer, it wasn't just 45 people and their armies, though. It should also include the entirety of their shield media, connections, pushing deadbeats. Exactly. I mean, that's what that's what Kwanzaa Osayefo did. I mean, he had media connection up the wazoo. He had media connections left and right. He did that for his own creations, and Meyer still beat him by, I think, multiple levels of success. He beat Kwanzaa Osayefo, the guy who had so much media attention, so many articles written about him. Meyer was suppressed by the mainstream media and dominated again. Because people don't want these unfun comics that they're putting out. They don't want comics that are just pushing race agendas or gender agendas. They want to read a comic that's fun to read, something with well-built adventures and characters, intriguing people, intriguing villains, fun little stories that you can just read over and over when you're bored or when you just feel like having adventure, maybe relaxing after work. I mean, I for one don't want to get done doing something monumental. I don't want to get done maybe when I want to relax or something. I don't want to open up a comic and then just have someone preach in my face. I already did college. Okay? I don't need to pay for preachers anymore. I already did college, and church is free. Okay? I don't need to buy your nonsense. Flying Turret 208, the canon, I'd probably just dub me by my usual name, Flying Turret 208. Nothing else. Okay? Old Man Programmer. And still, it was a relative failure, so it was also a failure of the shield media to dictate the narrative. And that's also, and again, that Umbrella guy represents that area too. Remember, he got a press pass for Anime Matsuri, so not only is that Umbrella guy expertly countering all of their weak sauce arguments, not only has he dominated their own game, the comics game, not only has he destroyed the effort of 45 plus people, he's destroyed and obliterated the idea that the mainstream media has any power anymore. And it's also the fact that that Umbrella guy is a journalist in his own right. He puts out content and facts and reports on stories just like a journalist should. And he got a press pass to Anime Matsuri for that effort. Everything they want to own, everything they want to dominate, everything these NPCs want to dominate, that Umbrella guy is there obliterating their efforts. He's everywhere. He's their boogeyman, their faceless boogeyman. And that's why they want to get rid of him so badly, because he's beating them so badly everywhere they turn. They want to push an agenda. That Umbrella guy is there to defunct it. He's there to debunk everything they say. They want to create comics. They want to take over comics. That Umbrella guy is there with his own comic, pushing his own idea, pushing his own, not ideology, but set of beliefs in professionalism. The NPC crowd wants to say that you shouldn't be professional, that you should be constantly virtue signaling your audience. You're supposed to be purifying your audience, weeding out all the quote bigots and ists and phobes. That's what you should be doing. And professionalism doesn't work anymore. Professionalism should be the way things work anymore. But that Umbrella guy pushed professionalism and dominated with it. So everywhere they turn, everywhere, their arguments, comics, control, stranglehold on the mainstream media, that Umbrella guy is there at every turn, destroying their efforts. All because he knows the value of professionalism and the value of hard work. That makes him dangerous to these people. Old Man Programmer, more than most others, he represents a faceless consumer. Yes, and that's exactly why he's so dangerous, because he wasn't this big-named industry professional like Ethan Van Sciver. It's one thing for Ethan Van Sciver to dominate because he brought in his cloud with him. It's one thing for someone like Diversity Comics to succeed because he created he created his own platform on critiquing comics. But that umbrella guy represents the faceless consumer, the average Joe. That's what he says he represents, and that's what he represents to these people. And that's what makes him so dangerous. Because he succeeds at every turn against these people. Every turn. Just obliterates everything they throw at him. So they dox him. They try to ruin his life. But they don't. But these NPC people don't understand strength. They don't understand sacrifice. They don't understand things like selflessness or self-control. All these people understand is the mentality of children. I want this, so I'm going to do this. I want you to think this, so you should think this, or I'll destroy you. I'll tell the teacher on you. These people have the mentality of children. That's it. That's basically it. They're very selfish. They're very impulsive. They have no idea the value of sacrifice, hard work, putting your dreams above your immediate desires. I want to do this someday, but if I continue eating snack cakes for every minute of the day and I just tweet all day, I probably won't ever achieve this. So, in their mind, to someone like Umbrella Guy, someone like Nick Rekieta, someone like Ethan Van Sciver, I mean, however you think about Ethan Van Sciver and his eating habits, even Ethan Van Sciver, I think, would put aside, if he had to have the choice, he would put aside the snack cakes for something better, if he had something better in mind. Of course, right now, drawing Cyberfrog, you can eat snack cakes while you draw. Not that big of a deal. But if he couldn't eat snack cakes and create Cyberfrog at the same time, I think even Van Sciver would put away a snack cake so that he could create his goal, achieve his goal that he set out for himself. Putting away immediate gratification for a later success. For bettering yourself. Old Man, Flying Turret 208. So wannabe villainous Mary Sue's meets Superman as seeking power for the sake of power is a waste of time. And it shows you're powerless if power controls what you do. That's exactly right. Power should come from you. You generate your own power. And you see this when you create your own goals, when you achieve your dreams, when you do what it takes to achieve your dreams. That means you have power. That means you've generated the power. You have the success under your belt. That proves that you are worthy of achieving these dreams. That Umbrella Guy put together a platform, and it became highly successful. It allowed him to generate the funds needed to put together an artist, to put together a storyboardist, and to put something together like a comic. No one handed him the ability to make this comic. No one just came from the heavens and said, here's something you can make. I'm going to give you the opportunity to make this comic. No, he did this on his own. Same goes for Ethan Van Sciver. Same goes for Diversity in Comics, and everyone who falls under the Comicsgate banner, and everyone who is somewhat Comicsgate adjacent. And by that, I mean anyone who doesn't adhere to the NPC politics. They don't bend the knee to the demands of these impetulant children. That's it. That's all. Yeah, that Umbrella Guy, Diversity in Comics, they all achieved their own power through hard work and dedication. So their power came from themselves. The NPC crowd, they want someone to hand them that power. That's why it's so dangerous to fall into that mentality, because when someone hands you that power, it can be easily taken away. It can be easily lost because you didn't earn it. It's not something attached to you. It's not something that's deeply rooted inside your heart or well-being. It's something someone handed to you. Creeper weirdo. It's kind of like how Afrofuturism could just be a fun bit of art, but it's also tied up in racial politics and hurts the art form. Yeah, there's so many things out there that could be interesting, but it's corrupted and tainted by all these NPC assertions, all their movements and their wanting to take over everything like a virus. That's why again, why they need to take over things, because they can't build their own stuff. They don't have the talent or the will or the dedication required to just create something on their own and have it succeed. It requires failure. It requires facing the fact that you will fail, facing the possibility that you will fail. It requires putting yourself out there, having people mock you, having people laugh at you, and then having the possibility of having no one listen. It takes putting yourself out there, and they're not willing to do that. All they want to do is be Mary Sue's, where things are they just show up, and people just hand them things. People just give them things. That's the world they want. They want to have a world that's where they can sit around, mock people on Twitter all day, and be handed success. So that's why I think it's a good idea. I think it's morally right to me in this case to push the case of the Littlest Umbrella, because this is, I think, right now one of the best things you can do to show these NPC weirdos their tactics, their mentality, and their beliefs are not going to work. Their culture of intimidation, cancel culture, is not going to be something we're going to adapt anytime soon. And we're going to fight against it the entire way. They want to cancel that Umbrella guy. They doxed him. Tim Doyle made his threats. He tried to extort that Umbrella guy. Yes, it was extortion. Tim Doyle committed extortion. Because he said, well, he did the mafia thing. Well, isn't that, you have a beautiful family there. Shame if you kept talking and something happened to them now that everyone knows who you are and where you live. That's extortion. That is mafia-style extortion. But I think the best way to prove that this isn't going to work, not one little bit, is if we continue to support Umbrella Guy and anyone else who falls under their target list. Anyone who just falls down, who comes down to falls victim to cancel culture, should be supported. If they're worthy, of course. I mean, I'm not saying support bad people. But until they've proven they're bad people, support them. And that's what I will suggest. That's what I will continue to do. Because this is no way to live. Kowtowing to cancel culture is not a way to live. And it shouldn't be allowed to succeed. Flying Turret 208, the same goes with why capitalism beats socialism. When you aren't using somebody else's stuff, you're more dedicated. Yeah, that's pretty much the sum of it. Usually, in that it hails back to the power debate. If you generate your own money, you know how it's generated, you know the value of it, and you know how to make more if you need more. If you're just handed money, you usually run out of someone else's money. Someone has to be out there making it. And as far as I know, this whole issue has been capitalists beating socialists, handed stuff for free, while capitalists get more beat down recipients of free handouts. It's exactly true. These people want success handed to them. That Umbrella Guy, Ethan Van Sciver, Diversity in Comics, and everyone else who is making their own comic and refuses to obey the tenets of NPC culture. All these people know the value of hard work, the value of creation. They are dedicated, they are passionate, and they know how to attract the customer. because they have generated their own works. They have generated their own powers. They have generated their own mentalities. Their power comes from them. Their power comes from knowing what the customer wants and crafting something interesting. The power of the NPC comes from someone else handing it to them. And that's what they want. They know they have no talents and no real value. Mainly because they don't want to put in the effort and the work to create something good, to create something of value. They want to just show up and be given things. They want someone to hand down success to them. And it took 45 people. 45 people got together and proved to the world that they are a gaggle of failures. Especially when compared to Comicsgate. So I would suggest to anyone out there, and if the case of Littlest Umbrella looks good to you, if it looks interesting to you, as it did to me, I would suggest you just try it out. Maybe support the effort, because it looks interesting. And right now, as of streaming right now, it is still on demand, and that Umbrella guy is still pushing it. He's still very happy to have people back it, and he's very dedicated to fulfilling his end of the agreement. So it seems to me, as soon as it's done, things will be launched out, but he keeps adding to the book, which is fantastic, because your dollar keeps getting stretched farther and farther. The same dollar that bought something at the very beginning, about the comic at the very beginning, will now purchase more and more perks, more and more pages. Same dollar will purchase more and more pages. Queer Weirdo, it's hard to argue against that with the 12th relaunch of SAW Hero Woman. Yeah, no one wants to read these things. Even people, the only people who want to read these weirdo comics are weirdos. If you talk to anyone who's in the mainstream, I mean, who's just a moderate and just maybe doesn't like Comicsgate or doesn't like what Comicsgate says or stands for, but then buys a Marvel comic, they don't like them either. Because these comics are not made for the regular person, the regular comics goer. They're made for weirdos who like women who look like men, who like a She-Hulk who looks like Nathan Explosion. No one wants these things. No one wants this nonsense. No one wants to filthy and dirty their shelves with this garbage. That's why they fail. Like Yoda said, this is why you fail. You just don't understand this. They don't understand. And now the Black Widow movie, a movie that I have been waiting for with excitement for ever since it was first announced, is being given into the hands of someone who, for some reason, thinks that violence and guns shouldn't have any part to play in the movie centering around an assassin. So these are just weird, strange, inhuman mentalities. I mean, these people don't get anything. They don't seem to understand anything. So this is, I mean, I'm happy to see them fail, because they deserve to fail. Rosemary Mori, he sends extra items with his Etsy orders too. I thought he sent me the wrong order at first because I got those before the item I bought. Oh, interesting. Okay, I didn't know that, but that seems like something that Umbrella Guy would do. He's, like I said, that Umbrella Guy has the same mentality as Vic Mignogna, at least when it comes to his fans. He always seems to be willing to go that extra mile, to make that extra connection, to be genuine with his fans. He really loves his fans. He's connected to them. He respects his fans. He respects the fact that you are listening to him, that you are making the investment to him, and in turn, he makes the same investment right back with you. That's what he does. You make the investment in him, and he knows it. So he does not hesitate to make that investment right back. So when these people doxed him at that particular moment, to try to trigger his wife into having a second miscarriage right before the baby was supposed to be due, that is highly monstrous. Highly monstrous. Unacceptable. Unforgivable. Inhuman. Morally corrupt, villainous actions. These people are monsters. These people are absolute tyrants and monsters. What kind of person, other than maybe a dictator, a heartless dictator, or some warlord going around inducting child soldiers, what kind of monsters would do that? What kind of heartless things, heartless monstrosities, grotesqueries. What kind of people would do that? These people are beasts, slugs, moral dwarfs. Absolutely heartless. Shallow shells of human beings. Heartless worms, worthless, completely valueless creatures. Live under your bed. These are the creatures that live under your bed because if they touched natural sunlight, they would just explode. I highly doubt that they can even see their own reflections in the mirror. Or if they did, they probably couldn't look themselves in the eye without bursting into flame. If someone saw Renfamous in real life, they'd probably turn into a pillar of salt. These are monstrous people. Absolutely monstrous. What kind of people do that? What kind of heroes? What kind of heroes, moral, righteous defenders of the weak? Righteous defenders of the weak, heroes, valiant people do not do these things. They do not try to stress out someone so that they lose their baby. These people are monstrous. So no, they don't deserve any deference. They don't deserve respect. They don't deserve kindness, not after this. So I would say please support that umbrella guy and the case of Littlest Umbrella, because this is something that should be supported. Indie publishers should be supported. A comic book having a premise of just a father and daughter, something father and daughter. You know what happens? You know, when she looks back on this, she's going to probably look back on this with fondness. It's going to be, I mean, how many parents leave something like this for their kid, their very own comic book, a very own movie? These are things that memories are made out of, because 20 years from now, 30 years from now, she could look back on this comic and she could remember her father and how much he loved her, that he loved her so much that he created this whole story where they could live out a fantastical adventure together forever, etched in eternity. Father and daughter, immortal, playing together, working together in a fictional universe, carrying out an interesting story. And the NPCs want to destroy this. They want to smear it with things, with various accusations, I'll say. That this story is bigoted. The story is created out of hatred and bigotry. That's dangerous somehow. They don't understand what love is. They don't understand what it means to love someone other than themselves. They have no idea. They don't have this concept. It just doesn't factor in their brains, hypothetically speaking. It's just not there. They don't have this kind of empathy. The only empathy they have is the stuff that they make up. This hollow, artificial empathy that they've seen other people use, but they don't really know what it actually is. They can simulate empathy the same way sociopaths can emulate emotions. But they don't know what it is. They don't know how to produce the actual real stuff. So they think this comic is monstrous. They try to get it taken down. They try to report it because that umbrella guy humiliates them on a daily basis. He has made them laughing stocks at every turn. He, Diversity in Comics, Ethan Van Sciver, make these people laughing stocks. Utter laughing stocks. On a daily basis. The whole world laughs at these people. Because they are absolutely ridiculous. And they don't deserve any kindness or empathy. They have tossed that away with their monstrous actions. So it's kind of like watching someone, whenever you see someone laugh and mock these people, you don't feel any sense of guilt because these people are utter and complete monsters. They have no empathy and no hearts. So you can mock them as much as you want and without any utterance of guilt. It's like mocking Nazis. It's like making fun of zombies. They're soulless creatures without any value. So it becomes far too easy to not only not feel any guilt whatsoever with mocking them, but to actually enjoy it. Because they are monstrous people. So I'm going to go ahead and end the stream here. Just wanted to go over all this and talk about the doxing of that umbrella guy and why they dislike him so much. And that's the reason being probably because he humiliates them at every turn on a daily basis. And he represents the exact thing they fear. The normal, faceless consumer succeeding where their industry professionals cannot. And I hope, next week I'll have another stream. It'll be far more lighter. Planning. Maybe we talk about go ahead and talk about maybe the Black Widow movie, something and a couple other things I have up for the agenda. But I'll go ahead and end the stream here. So have a good night, everyone. Thank you for joining me. Appreciate you sticking with me through this. And I'll see you all next week, okay? You all have a good night.